Hello, everybody. My name's Josh Kuster-Steffen. I'm a software engineer here at Medic and super excited to be hosting the June CHT Roundup call today. Like I said, we got a packed agenda full of stuff to share, all kinds of cool stuff happening. And with that, I will pass the microphone over to Mr. Jones to take us through CHT core updates.
Thanks, Josh. And thanks, Anro, for getting a quote in there from me at the end. That was a real treat. I wasn't expecting that. So I'm Ashley Jones. I'm a developer relations engineer, and I'd like to talk about version 419 and 420, some of which you just heard about from Anro. So 419 has two primary features: the duplicate contact prevention, which we just heard a wonderful presentation about and encourage folks to take advantage of. And then it also includes an outgoing header that's added to the request. So during outbound push, the CHT didn't include a header to identify itself as, hello, I'm CHT, version 418 or something. And there were some services that required you to include that header. And since there was no soft way to configure that, it needed a hard fix in the version update. This is something you might refer to as a user agent, like with your browser, but in the case of the CHT, it's a software package that's running. There's a ton more changes and bug fixes in the release, but these are the two features that we wanted to highlight. And we are getting amazing community contributions. Here's the complete list of everyone that's contributed to 419 outside of the immediate stewardship team. And I just wanted to really highlight everyone here. It's such a wonderful thing to see the community really participate here. Anro spoke to what's involved with that, and I think Jonathan is available to talk about the feature that he contributed with.
Yeah, sure. Can everyone hear me?
Sure,
Yep.
we can.
Yeah, thank you, James. Yeah, so talking about one of the bug fixes that we deployed in 419, it's still about duplicates. It looks like it's the theme of the day. Anyway, so this is one that was realized in our MOH Uganda deployment. This was a duplicate of the post request when you're trying to integrate with an external system. So essentially, outbound push would silently fail, and then in the process, it will try to duplicate a post request to an external system, especially specifically when you try to run multiple configuration of the outbound push. Yeah, that's what I can say about it. I'll hand it back to you, Mr. Jones. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. We also reached out to Apurva, who I see is on the call, to speak about the two contributions that they made.
Yes. Actually, I was asked by Anthony to share my experience contributing to CHT, and if I had some sessions, so I'd just like to go over that. Uh, so yeah, so the first point being motivations. I was motivated to contribute for the betterment of lives of CHWs and people who rely on CHWs for healthcare. And another motivation was to learn about the offline first development and other design decisions that go behind such a unique project. So the things that I like about the medic community is first is the devar calls. So I always end up learning more about the CHT and get introduced to cool new stuff while being part of these calls. Also, the dev demo or call last time was quite fun, where I think Diana presented the audit logs functionality and Ashley presented single sign-on. So another thing I like about the medic community is how friendly it is and how welcoming it is to new contributors. So like maintainers are always eager to help out new folks who are trying to maybe set up their development environment or have some questions about an issue. Another thing I like, especially, is the documentation. So I found it to be very beginner friendly, and I also appreciate the fact that it contains a lot of useful stuff apart from just setting up the environment. So by that I mean things like documentation around the offline first approach, the schema conventions that I refer to on an almost daily basis to work on the DMP project that I'm working on, which is related to CST data source, and also the style guidelines and commit message conventions. Uh, Besides that, I think uh, Medic does a great job of posting helpful videos on YouTube, be it the roundup calls or the dev demos and stuff like that. So, as a new contributor, I found it quite helpful to learn more about the CHT. And besides that, the tech radar is something that I found interesting. And Andra's talk about using tech radars was also quite insightful. And yeah, I also love the new extra theme that was introduced. Besides that, another thing I like about CST is how detailed the issue descriptions are. So I really see maintainers taking extra effort to provide the necessary context and not have I think like I assume you already know this type of uh, style when it comes to writing issues. So yeah, coming to the next point, which was recommendations that might be helpful for the CHT project. So first would be I would like to have us include more labels in the issues such that they mention what area the issue is related to and maybe the relevant skills that might be required to tackle that issue. Another thing that we can improve upon is clearly defining which issues are meant for the community to resolve or which issues are meant for the core team to work on. Um, then another session I had was about including more documentation around subsystems. So, uh, like speaking from the experience I've had, so when I started looking into the code base for CST data source, it was a bit tricky to get how things were designed and everything. So, we had a call with Sugat who gave us a walkthrough and told us how the code base uses currying and closures to like implement stuff. So maybe having that sort of prerequisite knowledge documented somewhere would be useful. And the last session would be having some sort of read this before you start contributing guide, which covers the key concepts and uh, really conveys the offline first approach when it comes to working on the CHT. So, yeah, this was all I had to say, and thanks for all the help that you guys have given. And yeah, I hope I continue to make meaningful contributions to the CHT. Thanks.
Purva, that was really wonderful. I really appreciate you taking the time to not only list the things that you found helpful and welcoming about working in the CHT and the CHT community, but areas for improvement. Your presence and attendance here on the call is really wonderful. Thanks so much for taking the time. We don't have time to go over all the contributors, so please do note that there's a number of other contributors for 419. So we're going to go on to 420, which the three main features are a storage pressure indicator, This is at a glance in the hamburger menu, starting with 420. CHWs can see a simple bar graph that shows empty on the left, as in you've got plenty of disk space, and full on the right. And as the bar graph progresses, your device is running out of space. And this was born out of a problem where CHWs would start to have errors or fail to synchronize and couldn't easily tell why. So while system administrators might be able to dig into some of the telemetry metrics that are recorded from the device and synchronizing up, it's often helpful to have a quickly accessible graph there that you can tell what's going on. Thanks, Anthony. I see forum posts flying by as I speak. Another feature that shipped in 420 is single sign-on, and this enables an OIDC compliant provider to allow a CHW or administrator, anyone, to log into the CHT. And we're actually going to get Bernard to do a quick demo of this, so I'm going to hold off speaking about that more. The other feature, actually, Apurva mentioned that we now have this improved audit log. Prior, what was happening was HA proxy, which is this server that sat in the middle between API and Couch, would try its best to log the entire body of a request. And this worked a little bit, but then would start to tip over when you had a request that was too long. I think it was 65,000 characters. And sometimes you were posting very long JSON bodies that just overflowed that limit. And so the solution to this is now to create a separate MEDDIC audit database and to allow you to use Mango queries to find out, for example, we think maybe the CHW's password was leaked. We'd like to look at all the documents that they edited between a certain time period, for example. And so with the audit log always recording that, you then can get all the document IDs of the documents that were edited, in this case, for example, by a certain CHW. But any change that's made is recorded, a creation, an edit, or a delete. So with that, I'd like to double back to single sign-on to see if Bernard is available to give a quick demo for the single sign-on.
Thank you, Ashley. Hopefully you can see my browser there.
I don't see anything yet.
Yeah, not yet.
All right, give me a second. Sharing my screen now. Let me know.
There we go.
Perfect. We can see it now.
Right. So maybe just to recap, the SSO feature that came out in version 4.20 enables you to use an identity provider to log in into your CHT instance. The case for why this feature was necessary is, one, it is a big improvement to security in the sense that you can move away from managing users using Excel sheets. And in addition to it, you're able to use one set of identities which are hosted in your identity provider. In this case, this will be your main system that you use, may it be Entra ID, Google, or any other that manages your users at the organization level. A bit of introduction. My name is Bernard, a software engineer and a CHT contributor and technical partner. For this feature, it is a highly collaborative and iterative development process, very exciting, I should mention as well. And just to highlight some of the partners involved here, you have ICRC, Living Goods, SSOLLINC, and Medic. And without much ado, let me proceed on to the demo. I'll show 3 parts here. The first thing to take note is that you have what we are calling an identity provider. In this case, for purpose of this demo, I'm using Entra ID. Here is a sample user who would exist in the system. And then you have the CHT instance, which is the screen I was showing earlier. And then the last bit of the demo will be a demonstration of how a user would log in through the SSO feature. I'll start by logging as the admin into the CHT. The reason I need to do this is so that we first of all get an idea of the hierarchy we're working with. We have one area there. And then on the admin end of things, we need to create a user who is going to map to this user that I have showing on the screen. Let me go ahead and do that. And before I do that, I think the thing to note here is that we're using a user email to link a user you already have pre-existing and a configuration you'll have in your CHT. The reason why the CHT config is important is because you need a user, for those of us, most of us who are familiar with this, a user logs into a specific area in the CHT, and that configuration needs to exist for you to log in into your specific area. Back to the admin panel, let me create this user real quick. I should mention at the point where you're getting this instance has already been enabled for SSO. The details to do that, we won't go through, or we won't go over that in this call, but the documentation in 4.20 is available on how to go about it. The user I want to create is Lynn. Lynn has this email, which I'll provide. I'll skip here just so that for the purpose of the demo, you notice that's not important. What we need to do is after we link the user to their area, we will provide an SSO email. This is the field that links this user to the identity that already exists in your identity provider. I'll go ahead and create that. And so we have our user there and proceed on to log out. What then I'll do is log in as Lynn through the SSO option here, which should redirect me to my identity provider, in this case being Entra. That will allow me to log in into Entra and then redirect me back to the CHT. Again, my email, and then allow me to just copy the password. If I could locate where that is. And I expect that once I'm logged into Entra, the system should automatically log me into the CHT. And you'll notice if you go to my user settings, I am logged in as Lynn, the user that we just created. Maybe one other thing to note is that this is available in CHT 4.20. From here, we might not be able to see that, but I think that's it for this demo. I'll stop sharing my screen and back to you.
There, found the unmute button. Sorry, Ashley,
Go ahead, Josh.
were you gonna close that up?
I was just going to ask if anyone had any questions about the feature, since Bernard did a great job of giving a run through on how it all works.
Perfect. Yes, we have some time here. If anybody has questions, thoughts on SSO login. I'll throw one question at you, Bernard. What happens if you have no email address on your OIDC provider end? What options do you have there?
Thank you for the question. I think the question, if I was to rephrase broadly, is what happens if there's a misconfiguration somewhere in that entire process. And I wish I had an example to show here. Actually, I don't know that we have time, but I could reshare my screen briefly and share that. But in short, you get a response error back on your CHT screen, essentially telling you that there was an error somewhere. We right now have two types of errors. One is a case where there's a misconfiguration somewhere. For example, your email is missing on your identity provider, in which case you need, as a user, an admin to configure things correctly for you. The other one is a case where it's a quote-unquote user error, where you do not have, or you're not authorized to log in. So for example, you're not a configured CHT user, in which case you'll get an error telling you that you have not been set up as a SSO user. And if you think you should be set up, talk to your admin and get that sorted out.
Perfect. Exactly. And maybe just one additional thing to add, since Bernard and I worked quite a bit on this and put a lot of effort into trying to make this as simple as possible for admins deploying and running it. There's a lot of moving parts for SSO login flows, but there is a lot of API server logging going on. So you're going to see an error come back on that login screen like Bernard described, but there's going to be a lot more details in the API logs to help you kind of troubleshoot what's going on there. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Bernard, for the demo there. I tell you what, we're really swinging high here on this roundup call with two excellent live demos. Very exciting stuff. Ashley, could you get us the slides back up? Because I think we'll just transition on to Phil, going to share us a little bit about the CHT roadmap.
Just want to close out 420 real quick by acknowledging not only Bernard, who participated in the single sign-on, as you saw, but a whole suite of other community members who were able to participate. And I want to just add one more important highlight to SSO, which is that it was incredibly helpful to have developers from a deployment that wanted to use the single sign-on. We weren't developing in the abstract. We weren't developing in a vacuum. We were developing in a minimum viable product approach to solve a solution for a very real world situation. And it was incredibly helpful. It was incredibly impactful. And it made the whole project, we knew what the goal was because we had the stakeholders on the call. It was very helpful. So I just want to really give a huge shout out to everyone who showed up and participated with that process. It was incredibly helpful. And then, as Josh said, we already gave the SSO demo. So over to Phil to give a roadmap update.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, in line with today's agenda, I think the theme today is in terms of collaboration and contributions. I'm going to talk about the community roadmap. So my name is Philip Mogo. I am the community engagement coordinator here at MEDIC. So recently we have this roadmap where we're trying to just have everyone within the community know what's going on, so what the community is up to. So, for example, currently we have a couple of active squads, which are around initiatives that come from the community. So, for example, if you'd be interested in any of, say, a feature or an initiative that you think would benefit the community and other organizations would be interested, you could just post it on the forum or reach out to a local celebrity, Anthony, for that. Yeah, but yeah, we have a roadmap. The roadmap basically just shows every activity, like every community initiative that everyone is interested in terms of like a couple of organizations. Could be an individual, it could be an organization, and we are happy to form a squad around this and yeah, just build these features. So for example, they currently have a number of active squads, and some might be winding down, such as the single sign-on, which we just talked about. And the active ones are around 4. As you can see here, we have some which are emerging, and if you'd be interested in any way, so just share a link on a link of the roadmap. If you're interested in any of these, contributing in any way to these squads, or forming a squad, you can reach out to us on the forum, or yeah, discuss on the forum, or our Anthony, he's able to facilitate some of these squads. So yeah, and it's open to everyone. You can join at any point. You can see the status where it is. It could be in early discussion or development testing, or it could be done. And yeah, that's it in terms of the roadmap. If you have any questions, you can voice them now. Yeah, meanwhile, we can move on to the next slide.
Phil, can I just show up to a squad meeting anytime without asking anybody?
Yeah, you could actually do
How
that.
do I
So
find them?
yeah, maybe Anthony could share the calendar, the publicly available calendar for this. So we have a calendar that you are able to subscribe to and see all these schools that are there, all other calls, and some of the new calls that we have, which I'll be talking about in a moment. And you can join at any given point and figure out what's going on. The notes are available. The notes are also available publicly, so, and design documents as well. So you could join at any given point. Right, we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so we have some community announcements. I'll start with the new event. This is the community, the demo dev hour. I think Approva sort of alluded to this in terms of how the community shows up. Andrew as well, and then he mentioned the community showed up. So we have a new one. This is the demo dev hour. So here we have engineers who've deployed or developed technology, just showcasing technical demos. This could be deployments, could be configuration, all stuff such as real-time code with presenters going step by step. So it's more of a technical call for developers. We have we have the second one on 3rd of July, and it's at 1 to 2 p.m. GMT. So all are welcome for this. So the next set of announcements are around what's coming up. I think once Anthony shares the community, the publicly available community calendar, you can actually see all these events. So we have the community meetup next week, the same time as this call at 1 to 2 p.m. GMT. We have the dev hour, which is a bit different from the demo dev hour. So we have those two in subsequent weeks, and then we also have the roundup, this call in I think four Thursdays from now. So yeah, the recording and the notes for this call will be shared on the forum, and looking forward to the next one. Back to you, Josh.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. We are at a close here, everybody. We are at the top of the hour. That's all for the June roundup call. Thank you everybody for being here. A huge thank you to our presenters, all of the community contributors that are making these awesome features possible. And with that, I'll land us here and we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Ciao.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.